Hello, my name is Catherine. I'm part of the Marks & Spencer Company Archive team, and welcome to our online talk, Vintage M&S, an introduction to our fashion archive. And this is an introduction to the amazing vintage clothing that M&S has in its archive collection, arguably the best high street fashion archive in the UK, which features garments dating from the 1920s right up to the present. This is a pre-recorded talk featuring original archive images. I'm available online to answer any questions during the talk, so do please use the comments facility to get in touch. And of course, at any time you're able to get in touch with the company archive team to ask us any questions you may have. The images today are provided for your enjoyment and information. If you were interested in using any of our imagery or film content for any other purpose, please get in touch with the archive. All the original items in our archive collection are stored in our special temperature and climate controlled strong room, where even the humidity in the air is controlled to make sure that all of the archive materials survive in the best possible condition for the future. So what you're seeing on the left here is an image taken inside our strong room. All of the hanging garments are carefully packaged to protect them from light, and everything has its own unique reference number. And smaller items, for example, gloves, hats, shoes, are all carefully wrapped in acid-free tissue paper and stored in boxes. So the strong room itself isn't exactly a feast for the eyes. You're just looking at lots and lots of protective bags and boxes. We try to feature as many garments as we can at any time within our archive exhibition, and the items on display change regularly. Obviously, it's not quite normal times at the moment, so sadly the archive is closed to visitors, but our online access remains a key part of how you can engage with and explore the archive collection. So you can use our online catalogue, and I've included the link here, to see what's in the archive collection, and then get in touch with us by email to let us know which items are of particular interest. And wherever possible, we will send you digital images and additional information about any archives that are of interest. It's not just the clothing itself that can be a fantastic source of vintage inspiration. We also have lots of examples of original packaging for garments and thousands of marketing images. And in the majority of cases, we'll have marketing images for a particular item of clothing, but not necessarily the vintage garment itself. In terms of the garments, we've got about 2,000 vintage garments in the archive collection, but if you think about how long M&S has been producing clothing and the sheer numbers of lines sold every season, you'll understand that that's just a very small selection of every item of clothing that M&S has ever produced. We'll start by thinking about the early years of Marks & Spencer. Michael Marks, the founder of M&S, set up his first penny market stall at Kirkgate Market in 1884, and we can see here an artist's impression of what the market stall would have looked like, selling basic household items. You can see that everything being sold on the stall was displayed in baskets on the trestle tables. And in the early years of Marks & Spencer, the vast majority of our customers wouldn't have had the disposable income to buy their clothing. They would have made and repaired their own clothes. So to cater for our customers, we sold sewing equipment and haberdashery items such as needles, threads, hooks and eyes, yarns, buttons and replacement needles for sewing machines. And here we've got an example, some examples from the archive collection of buttons on cards, self-fixing brace buttons with the guarantee that when once fixed will never come off, and also on the left a tube containing knitting needles. In 1894, Michael Marks went into partnership with Tom Spencer. The Marks & Spencer name was born, and this allowed for expansion onto the high street, and by the turn of the century there were 12 Marks and Spencer shops and 24 market stalls. The merchandise continued to include household essentials, sewing equipment and stationery, and was laid out in the Penny Bazaar stores for customers to browse and handle, rather than being kept behind an imposing counter, so that customers could browse with no obligation to buy, and it was the start of trying to create an enjoyable hands-on shopping experience for our customers. By 1908, both Michael Marks and Tom Spencer had passed away, and Michael's son, Simon Marks, took over the management of the company in 1916. He was still a young man in his mid-20s, and the business had survived the First World War, but because of the economic impact, it became much harder to sell items for just a penny. So Simon transformed the business in the early 1920s and 1930s, introducing a new range of price points up to 5 shillings, alongside a wider range of goods, including, for the very first time, ready-made clothing. There were two key developments that went hand in hand with this. The fact that our customers had more disposable income in this period and started to be able to consider buying clothing, and also changes in manufacturing techniques, which meant that factories were now able to mass produce clothing in a range of sizes in a way that just hadn't been possible in the earlier period. So Simon really transformed the business, and alongside ready-made clothing started to sell children's toys, food and a growing range of homeware. The page on the left is from the Marks and Spencer Grand Annual, which was an in-house publication containing adverts for products available in our shops, and it shows a ladies' collar support which was designed to be more comfortable and do away with the nasty red marks caused by the ordinary support. Our drapery department opened in 1926 as part of dry goods, and a wide range of clothing was introduced, including our very first bra, which dates from the late 1920s. We have a collection of staff bulletins here at the archive, and these were weekly documents that instructed store managers on new products, updates and merchandising techniques, and it's the start of visual merchandising and thinking about how our goods are displayed in stores. In 1928 we created our sub-brand called St. Michael in honour of the company's founder Michael Marks, and initially it appeared only on the very best quality items that we were selling, although it did become exclusively the Marks and Spencer own brand in the 1950s, and all of our goods from that point were sold under the St. Michael brand. By the 1930s, M&S was bringing mass-produced clothing to the high street, combining the development of new fabrics and working creatively with suppliers and designers. Marks and Spencer had quite a pioneering role in making fashion accessible, and we established our own in-house textile laboratory in 1935. The department used scientific methods to test the quality of fabrics and garments, and between 1935 and 1939, records show that 9,000 tests were carried out on wearability, washability and durability of our clothing. As a result, the Merchandise Development Department was established in 1936 under the direction of industrial chemist Dr. Eric Kahn, and a separate design department was set up at the same time. It was very unusual at this period for a mainstream clothing retailer to have its own in-house design, but our in-house designers were specially devoted to the textile innovation, and it really gave M&S a real advantage over our competitors and meant that we could deal directly with manufacturers for the first time, so that we were able to direct the products to be produced which we knew would appeal to our customers. The increasing range of products for sale in the 1930s required new methods of display in store, and that's where some of the guidelines from the staff bulletins that I mentioned start to really come into play, and also more detailed directions circulated to all of our stores. Island counters with panelled fronts were increasingly favoured over traditional wall counters, and they created central displays whilst having useful shelving at the back for reserve stock. Products were also displayed by type at this time, so all of the skirts would have been in one area of the store, all blouses in another, and our hats were displayed in stylish hat bars such as the image on the right. As our clothing ranges expanded in the 1930s, so did the way in which we advertised them. The Marks and Spencer magazine gave customers information on new products through aspirational colour adverts, as well as stories, letters, competitions and recipes. Most garments sold at this time were made from either rayon artificial silk, wool or from cotton. And the advert on the left, the colour advert, is from a Christmas 1932 magazine showing nightwear in artificial silk or art silk. This proved hugely popular with customers as the fabric created glamorous flowing garments like the nightwear featured here, but was more practical than real silk and also more affordable and easier to care for. We also sold knitting and sewing patterns so that our customers could keep up to date with the latest styles if they were creating their own clothing. And on the top right, you can see a pattern for a charming little sunsuit and matching cardigan. Although made from wool, I'm not sure how comfortable it would have been. Some of my personal favourite 1930s items within the archive collection are very much at the luxurious end of the scale. An absolutely beautiful woman's blouse with very detailed embroidery and pin-tuck detailing, and this flowing dressing gown featuring a Japanese-inspired design featuring a pagoda and beautiful florals. And this dressing gown was actually used as inspiration for a replica product in the 2016 Alexa Chung collaboration with M&S, Archive by Alexa, and I completely see why. Accessible and practical clothing became even more important during the Second World War. In June 1942, clothes rationing was introduced with a coupon system based on the amount of fabric required to manufacture different types of clothing. One of M&S's clothing technologists worked with the government to devise specifications for utility clothing that were adopted by the government in 1942 in what became known as the Utility Clothing Scheme. These included specifications to ensure that clothing was good quality and would last, which was hugely important if, as a customer, you were using up your precious coupon allocation. M&S technologists worked hard to design bright, attractive prints for utility clothing to ensure that the garments were still attractive and appealing to customers despite the restrictions placed on their manufacture. And the archive collection has some fantastic examples of this. Here on the left we can see a very bright, attractive Egyptian print with stylised hieroglyphs and pharaohs, and also an exciting circus print. And these both featured on overall blouses, a loose smock style blouse designed to be worn over clothes for light housework duties, but this was also the closest thing to maternity wear in this period as well. Some of the best sellers in utility clothing in this period included slacks for women, so this is really the first time that women's trousers became a popular clothing item. The trousers were far more practical than dresses and skirts if you were dashing off to the nearest air raid shelter. Dressing gowns and utility lingerie were very popular too. For the display of garments through the 1940s, staff guidelines for window dressing and visual merchandising ensured a more standardised approach in all of our stores, And this image shows a display manual used at the Gallery Gate store in Leicester in the 1940s. These particular pages show staff how to create a hosiery fan and techniques for folding roll-ons. During the war, austerity measures were put in place which restricted how much cloth could be used. Trimmings and pleats were restricted, as were skirt lengths and turn-ups on men's trousers. Garments could have a maximum of 5 buttons and 2 pockets, so the design really was restrained by the restrictions. Austerity measures were slowly relaxed after the war, and the utility scheme finally ended in 1952. However, M&S carried lessons learned forward into the 1950s, especially in terms of print technology and research into man-made fabrics. Because M&S Textile Technologies was so involved in the utility scheme, we have a very strong collection of utility clothing, one of the best in the UK. And these are just a few of the examples from the women's wear utility range, featuring the attractive patterns and bright, bold colours that I mentioned. We're trying to do everything we can to ensure that the customer comes and uses her clothing coupons at M&S. She'll probably only have a new dress every 2 years. We want to make sure it's an M&S dress, and even the apron shows a beautiful pattern and colour. I absolutely love the detail and colour from this utility dress. The ballerina design that appears across the whole dress and is even carried through onto the fabric belt as well. It's just a beautiful level of detail, and it makes the dress absolutely pop. Some of the items in the utility clothing range in our collection really do tell their own story. This bra produced under the utility scheme, you can see from the label CC41, which stands for Controlled Commodity 41. And you can see that the ribbon straps are the only degree of fit that the customer can change to try and ensure that the bra fits as well as possible. This is long before cup sizes were introduced into our lingerie ranges. And in other cases, the story comes with the item into our archive collection. This photograph shows Mrs. Edwards. She worked in our Wolverhampton store as a window dresser, and she donated this dress to the archive collection. She remembers saving up her wartime clothing ration to be able to purchase the dress, which she wore on her first date with the man who became her husband, and they were happily married for many years. And she was able to tell us about slight changes she'd had to make. One of the buttons across the shoulder had become broken, so she'd carefully found the best replacement she could to mend the dress, and it had been well loved for many years. M&S's chairman, Simon Marks, saw the advances in textile technology made during the war as something to really build on for customers. And his idea was to make the housewife's life easier. And so by the end of the 1950s, the emphasis was on providing garments that were practical, easy to wash, easy to wear, and promised that we shall spare no effort to satisfy these developing needs and to widen the range of our goods to meet them. At the forefront of this post-war transformation was a fabric known as Marspun. Originally a spun rayon produced under the utility scheme, simply known as Fabric 1005. But by 1953 it had been developed, rebranded and renamed as Marspun. And in the 1950s, Marspun dresses in the new look style with nipped-in waists and full skirts, like the ones we see here, were produced in 340 different Parisian designs and in 2,000 colour combinations, with the tagline, Marspun makes sense. As nylon was no longer required for military use, it became more readily available for clothing. So we made men's shirts using blends of natural fibres with nylon, as well as women's blouses and underwear. In 1954, we were using terylene, which was an early form of polyester, for a wide variety of garments, whilst 1955 brought synthetic washable jersey onto the sales floor. Other new wonder fabrics of the 1950s included Tricell and Orlon, which had a similar appearance to cashmere, and Agilon, which was used to make breathable elasticated stockings. By focusing on specific easy care properties such as drip dry and minimum iron, our technologists created clothing which was not only in keeping with fashion trends, but also suited the changing lifestyles of our customers, freeing people from the drudgery of laundry day at home. M&S accessories were also a popular way to refresh your look after the war, when people were unable to afford full new outfits, for example, faux silk scarves, kid leather gloves and hats. So here we are, just with a few more examples of 1950s dresses from our archive collection, featuring the classic New Look silhouette with the nipped in waist and the very full skirt. We have a range of different patterns and prints available in this design. And this 1950s dress just really brings home that the wartime and early 1950s restrictions on the amount of clothing that could be used had all absolutely come to an end. Beautifully gathered skirt, pin tucks down the front, an attractive wide collar, and I love the cuff detail on the elbow length sleeves as well. I mentioned the importance of accessories in the 1950s, and these are a couple of examples from the collection showing some of the hats that our customers would have been able to buy, and also the gloves that we would have all been wearing too. In the 1950s, M&S swimwear had very much evolved from knitted woolen swimsuits like this black 1930s men's woolen design with sewn-in undertrunks, which is part of the archive collection, and new swimwear started making use of the new range of synthetic fabrics. The qualities of fabrics such as rayon and nylon were perfect for modern swimwear. Fashionable strapless suits were popular, and men didn't miss out. Swimming trunks with elasticated waists were big sellers in the 1950s. Looking ahead to the 1960s, our adverts focused on the clothing ranges and drew attention to the newly developed wonder fabrics that they were made from, such as acrylan, terylene and nylon, and their easy care, easy wear properties. At the time when big musicals were really popular with customers at the cinema, our adverts reflected this, and many of our adverts presented products with Hollywood musical style singing and dancing, or scenes such as glamorous cocktail parties or sun-baked Mediterranean terraces, setting the scene for M&S's St. Michael fashions. So as we look at M&S clothing in the 1960s, I'm going to show you some adverts from the decade that we have in our film collection.
Sing a little song about terylene, terylene made the St. Michael way. Nothing's ever wrong about terylene, terylene made the St. Michael way. So come to Marks and Spencer and look at the fine display of fabulously beautiful, wonderful terylene made the St. Michael way. So chic, so sleek, the styling is beguiling and unique. And the pleats are made to stay, and the colors bright and gay make you pretty as a picture, so to speak. The suits are fashionable and washable and always look like new. And these St. Michael shirts, really smart, aren't they? slacks for girls, beautifully styled. And slacks for men, casual shirts too. Easy to take care of, easy on the eye, and oh so easy on the pocket. St. Michael plus Terraline equals top of the class. Terra-little-deen, terra-little-deen, terra-terra-terra-leen. Sing a little song about Terraline, Terraline made the St. Michael way. Nothing's ever wrong about Terraline, Terraline made the St. Michael way. So come to Marks and Spencer and look at the fine display of fabulously beautiful, wonderful Terraline made the St. Michael way. From Marks and Spencer.
Dancing with joy, feeling so grand in St. Michael clothes made with acrylan. Little Miss Acrylans go to town in pleated plaid pinafores, blue and brown. Pleated school pinafores, navy or green, prettiest pinafores ever seen. Wash like a dream. Pleats stay in as neat as a pin, warm as a bunny, cuddly as a hug. Little Miss Acrylans go to town in the prettiest pinafores to be found. Dancing with joy, feeling so grand in St. Michael clothes made acrylan. Little Miss Acrylans play around in pleated plaid skirts, green and brown. Reversible skirts, gay and bright. Skirts and straps, adorable sight. Reversibles for mothers, too. Pleats stay in as neat as a pin, whatever situation you're in. Acrylan ladies play around in the prettiest skirts to be found. Dancing with joy in acrylan slippers. Feeling so grand in St. Michael slacks. Dancing with joy, feeling so grand in sweaters made in acrylan. Go to town. Play around. Stay at home. Play at home. Dancing with joy, feeling so grand in St. Michael clothes made with acrylan. From Marks and Spencer.
Developments in man-made fibres and synthetic fabrics meant that garments, especially mini-skirts and mini-dresses for our new teen ranges, could be produced more cheaply and therefore be affordable to a younger market. And as hemlines rose, we introduced tights in 1962. So having previously been known for our stockings, tights suddenly became a bestseller. And the most popular colour in hosiery in the 1960s was American tan, closely followed by bronze. In 1966, Twiggy made her first appearance modelling for M&S. In this advert from an M&S supplement on the right of the screen, Twiggy is wearing a dress designed with a hemline well above the knee for the young go-ahead. Newly developed fabrics continue to be introduced to the sales floor throughout the 1960s, including polyesters and acrylics. And the biggest names in easy care synthetics were Lycra, Cortel and Crimplene. And these synthetic garments were seen as reliable, inexpensive and washable. The 1960s saw the fashionable qualities of these new fabrics being promoted. For example, jersey wear, which was a St. Michael staple, was made with Trisol and Banlon in 1960, and we suggested that the skirts could be cropped to any length that suits you without hemming. The fabric can't ladder. M&S clothing reflects cultural changes and in the 1960s began catering for women in the workplace. Jersey dresses and suits provided a versatile outfit, and St. Michael News magazine reported, "It goes from office to lunch and on to an evening's enjoyment with just a change of bag or shoe and perhaps the addition of a pretty hat. The colour coordinates trend of 1966 was made possible by our in-house colour council work with the research laboratory to standardise colours. And this standardisation meant garments in lamb's wool, botany wool, cartel and even nylon crochet stockings were all available in the same shades of red, green, gold and turquoise. In the 1960s, beachwear became increasingly popular with customers, and the M&S stand at the 1962 Ideal Home Show sold as much swimwear in one day as an average store would sell in a week. The following year, the stand included a dedicated swimwear bar to cope with demand, featuring styles such as the ever-popular Bri-Nylon blue and white one-piece. The two-piece swimsuit was seen to be perfect for those who don't care for the brevity of a bikini but want to get a good suntan. And by the end of the 1960s, bikinis were hugely popular, and in 1969, M&S sold over 100,000 of our best-selling toweling bikini. The same year, a beachwear designer made regular trips to Europe to spot the latest trends in swimwear, commenting after one visit, "France has always led the field in beachwear, but we've caught up a lot." I'm going to show you another advert, which is a film from 1965, advertising M&S swimwear, summer holiday clothes and nightwear. The advert features various scenes around a holiday town, with holiday clothes in fabrics that would pack well, stretch swimwear that would keep its shape, and women's nightwear with delicate trimmings. It was filmed in Portugal and won second prize at the 12th Annual International Advertising Film Festival in Cannes. I hope you enjoy it.
Dreaming of holidays? St. Michael clothes in Bri-Nylon are the dreams you can pack and take with you. The look of luxury in clothes that are carefree. St. Michael stretch slacks and tops. Easy to wear, easy to care for. Fashion that takes the eye. Bri-Nylon stretch swimsuits that keep their shape and yours in perfect trim. Styles as new as swimming in space. The mellowness of old stone provides the perfect background for the gay colors of these trend-setting prints in Bri-Nylon chiffon. And perfectly dreamy too are these lovely night dresses with their delicate trimming. Down to the sea in swimwear. When the coast calls, you'll be up to the minute in St. Michael casuals in Bri-Nylon, or one of the exclusively designed swimsuits from Marks & Spencer. When you're wishing you were there, remember, you can buy the best in Bri-Nylon now from Marks & Spencer.
I really wanted to show some of the mini skirts that we have in the archive collection. So the classic 1960s garment, some of them really are very short indeed. Sometimes it's only from the product code on the label that we know that it was definitely categorised as a dress rather than as a blouse, but these were all mini dresses that we were selling in the period. After the reign of the mini in the 1960s, hemlines lengthened and maxi dresses and midi skirts became the new fashion in the 1970s. St. Michael clothing followed the 70s trends of flares, wide kipper style ties and pointed shirt collars. Some of the images here show party wear ensembles that were very popular in the 70s. So we've got a man's black velvet evening jacket and full-length kaftan-style dresses for women. Fabric innovation continued to be really important, and in 1972 we developed a process to mass-produce machine-washable lamb's wool and Shetland wool. Researchers in Australia discovered a way of adding a shrink-proof coating to wool, and our technologists worked quickly to find a way of getting this technique out of the laboratory and into large-scale production. We worked with chemists and the International Wool Secretariat to achieve this, and wool with this shrink-proof coating also had the benefit of being more hard-wearing. It allowed brighter dyes to be used and was more colour-fast. In the 1970s, M&S started to display clothing in stores on mannequins for the first time, allowing customers to see items shown together as outfits on a human form, rather than as separate categories in separate areas of the store. And 1972 saw one of our earliest uses of mannequins in the Marksman campaign. There's a mock-up of the display materials on the right of the screen here, and the Marksman campaign was targeting male customers directly for the first time and included magazine advertising and in-store visual merchandising, all with a focus on sports and outdoor pursuits and a Bond-style adventure lifestyle. In the same year, suits were introduced to our menswear range, and that was made possible through innovation in textile technology, which ensured consistency of fabrics rather than variation from one roll of fabric to another, meaning that a customer could buy a jacket and trousers separately in the right sizes, knowing that the colour would be a perfect match. For younger customers, in 1979, the Miss Michelle clothing range was launched, aimed at the growing market for teenagers and young women. There was also a Young St. Michael range for younger men. So here are just a few examples of the maxi dresses that were popular in this period, from very loose flowing styles to the tiered peasant style maxi dress shown on the right here. And we produced them in a wide range of prints and colour variations. And let's have a look at men's fashion in the 1970s too. Most of the men's clothing we have in the archive collection before this period tends to be fairly traditional from decade to decade, fairly smart trousers and shirts and sweaters. But this is really when fashion starts to feature in our menswear collections, with more casual tops, more distinctive shaping, especially to collars, and get a load of these jeans. Now we know that they were never actually worn. They were donated to the archive complete with the tags still attached. So we know that the customer purchased these bold jeans and then chickened out of actually wearing them. Women's wear fashions in the 1980s underwent changes with a focus on more business style clothing, reflecting the trend for power dressing with sharp tailoring and large shoulder pads. We also created clothes in line with the new romantic trend, so frills and flounces and white cotton blouses. Our 1981 spring range was praised by the press, who said that our designers are in the mood to stay with the romantic look, so skirts are long and full beneath a nipped-in belted waist. Blouses are still ornate. Without a frill or a tuck or two, you just can't get the look right. There are endless permutations on the beautiful blouse theme. Most are cut full and loose in the body and sleeves and have pretty Puritan or Edwardian collars, frills at the neck, layers of flounces, soft cape collars, lace trim or pin-tucked front. Some are in crisp cotton, others in silky or diaphanous polyester. All provide an instant spring refresher for anyone's wardrobe. Many of us might take comfortable, stretchy denim for granted, but new stretch jeans developed with Lycra were celebrated in the 1981 St. Michael News, which was our staff magazine, which sang the praises of the new stretch denim. Stretch cords, denims and polywool trousers offered complete freedom of movement and comfort you've never known before. The trousers and jeans look similar to their non-stretch counterparts until you put them on, claimed the tagline. Then it's bliss, like a glove fitting and hugging your body and moving with you. And even more important, they snap back into shape after every move. Talking of Lycra, M&S expanded the range of sport and fitness clothing in the 1980s. This included swimwear and leotards. And these leotards were available in plain shimmering nylon Lycra and striped cotton Lycra, and could be coordinated with matching footless tights. Advertised as perfect for Keep Fit fanatics, a slinky all-in-one nylon Lycra exercise suit in black and kingfisher was also available. We launched our first range of ski wear in 1985 using the relatively new fabric Tactile, which was warm, quick drying and soft to touch. And by the late 1980s, our ski range was sold in most of our larger stores with jackets, salopettes, sunglasses, gloves, goggles, etc. We also started to sell children's ski wear. Here are some classic 1980s women's wear looks from the archive collection. So features that we mentioned, such as the collars and the neckties, the padded shoulders, etc. Absolutely classic looks from the 1980s. In the 1990s, M&S worked with designers on successful fashion collaborations, designers including Julian McDonald and Betty Jackson. And we also embarked on a new approach to advertising, featuring high-profile models and celebrities. These included print advertising campaigns featuring models such as Claudia Schiffer and also Twiggy. She'd first modelled for us in the 1960s, and we started working with her again to really connect with our M&S core customer. Key looks in the 1990s were the on-trend casual layered look with relaxed fitting separates that could be layered together. And we encourage customers to create an individual style by combining tone and texture. In terms of fabric innovation in the 90s, M&S began using a Teflon coating on our clothing to act as a water repellent and stain resistant treatment, and this became known as stormwear, which we still have today. We also launched body sensor tights to keep you cool when it's hot and warm when it's cold outside. Our St. Michael brand name was phased out in 2000, and we introduced sub-brands designed to cater for all of our different customers, including Peruna, Autograph and Blue Harbour. In 2003, we won the Queen's Award for Innovation for our machine washable men's suit. And that sort of harks back to some of those earlier innovations in washability that I mentioned earlier. In 2006, we introduced machine washable silk lingerie for the first time. We were the first to introduce this to the high street. And we also introduced ladder resist hosiery using yarn exclusive to M&S. The yarn was developed to have thousands of invisible mini joins, so that if a thread were to break, the hole would go no further. And the technology meant that tights could be produced in fine deniers while still being ladder resistant, without the typical heavy appearance of ladder resist hosiery. For M&S's 125th anniversary in 2009, M&S asked designers to create some archive-inspired products and fashion pieces, and our design teams got creative and took ideas from garments, prints and shapes using the archive collection. And on the right here, you'll see some examples of the best-selling range of 125 dresses that were part of the capsule collection for the 125th anniversary, all created from vintage M&S dresses and skirts that we have in the archive collection. Following the success of the vintage-inspired garments that were produced for the 125th anniversary, our design teams have used the archive more and more for retro and vintage inspiration, whether it's for a direct replica of a product or taking a print or pattern and redesigning it in a new colour for a different type of garment, or using archive images in different ways on different merchandise. And that brings us to the end of the talk today. I really hope you've enjoyed seeing some of the vintage fashion in the archive collection. A lot of fashion archives are high fashion, and this really is about high street fashion, and a very strong archive collection for that. Do get in touch if you have any questions with us, and look out for our next online event on the 8th of March, where we'll be talking about Flora Solomon, Marks & Spencer's welfare warrior.